Da, 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 da. I'm so excited. My dog's like, what are you doing? It's Romania Black. And we're on episode 13 of Revolutionary Girl Utena. Yeah, there was not a lot of waiting between episode 12 and this episode. Luckily, I recorded episode 12 right before the comments for for episode 8. And episode 9 came out, so that's where I'm at. But yeah, I was really excited. I was like, I don't want to wait. I want to watch episode 13 because I want to see if we see Toga's reaction to getting his ass handed to him. So we can't say that. He did not get his ass handed to him. It was a rather close match, and Utena got lots of battle scars from it, although it looked like he just got her clothes. What a bastard. Anyway, the only comment I have is from Oliver Jajado, who wants to talk about the commentary from Ikuhara for episode 8. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. But episode 8, if you don't remember, is the curried high trip where Nanami gets attacked by elephants. It's the funniest damn thing I've seen in a long time. But here is the commentary. I actually haven't read the commentary before getting to this. I just told Oliver, I'm like, I will get to it and we'll go from there. So the commentary for episode 8 is, as I said before, this was planned as episode 6. We'd originally contracted an outside studio to do it, but a few days before ADR was supposed to start, it became clear that virtually none of the production was done. We hurriedly swapped it with episode 8, which broadcast as episode 6, in the schedule. The whole series of knockabout insanity that got bandied back and forth was traumatically intense. And so somebody talked about how, I think it was H Banana 7 talked about how this episode 8 seemed very like outsourced, but that kind of adds to the hilarity of it. And that's probably why they outsourced it, because they're like, well, worst case scenario, it's going to make it look even funnier. So anyway, I don't want to assign blame or try anyone in absentia here, so I won't say any more about it. But if you were to ask me whether I hate the episode because of that fuss, I'd say no, not really. In fact, there are many parts of it that I'm quite fond of. I think the colossal effort the staff put in with their backs against the wall like that sublimated the episode's cheapness into solid humor. Exactly! That's right! It just makes the humor even funnier. That scene when our heroines' daily lives with their switched personalities are strung together with snapshots, I've thought for a long time that in the audio mix there was kind of thin there. But in this 5.1 remaster, it finally got a nice, lively sound. Well, when I go to the Blu-ray, I think these are actually from the Blu-ray. I think Anthony got the files from there, so never mind. But I can watch it on the Blu-ray later and confirm. Which reminds me, what had me worried during production was this episode's climax. Which scene is the climactic one? I agonized. Looking back on it now, maybe it was the part when Nanami slipped on the banana peel. I feel like for me, with episode 8, the climax of the episode is indeed when she slips on the banana peel and the lamp with the spices breaks and it all just dusts in the wind. That's the climax for me as well, because then after that, it gets resolved and we find out that it was actually the spices. So those are my comments. So I'm pretty excited about all of this, about diving in this episode. I want to give a shout out over to our patrons over on Patreon in our philanthropy tier, as well as Anthony for helping me to be able to watch these episodes and keep this channel up and going. So thank you to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Alexandra Q, as well as Be Happy, Bryant Reed, Dana, Danny Donmai, Devorin, Destiny Marie, Damage 3245, as well as Danger Zone, as well as Ichu, Eric, Ghostly Turnip, Fisho, Elfreya, Linden, Ivan, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nicholas, Nameless Monster, Sunspots Trails, Shimoyama, and Translucent Men, and No Nickname. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm super excited, y'all. Like I said, last episode, Utena, she got Anthe back, which was exciting. So now it's like, are we going to see Toga's reaction? Are we going to get Jury being all cheeky about it? Is Toga going to come to Jury being like, why'd you help her? And then Jury's going to be like, because you're a bitch. Like, what's the aftermath going to be? Or is it going to be something completely unrelated? Or will it be an anime episode? It could be an anime episode. But my dogs are at my feet. looking like the roses that are yin and yang to each other. So that's as good of a sign as any for us to start. So I hope you all enjoy this reaction, but we're going to start Utena, Revolutionary Girl Utena, episode 13. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's turn on this sound and let's go. I knew 30 seconds into this episode, I was going to be bringing Whiteboard Kun out. What? What? Oh my God. Okay. I keep saying, so this is when Act 1 ends. And I don't know. I feel like maybe this is the start of Act 2, or maybe it's where Act 1 ends. Who knows? Maybe the show's like, screw you, Romania. This is what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, forget acts and convention when it comes to Revolutionary Girl Utena. Yeah. I normally, if I'm being honest with you, I normally hate recap episodes. I loathe them. And I loathe them because typically all they are is that they're lazy. Usually a recap episode is lazy. They just cobble together a bunch of images you've already seen. If you've been watching week to week, you know what happened. You've been watching week to week. It's not like you took a 6-month break and then came back and been like, well, here's what you've been missing out or may have forgotten about. It's like, no, you've been following along. So when we had this episode, at first I was like, are we getting a recap episode? But what makes this work is that anytime they can do a recap, but not only add additional material that makes it worth your while, but add in an element of mystery, add in an element of setting the stage for the next act, adding an element of what is going on. I'm so baffled. And I'm like, what is happening? And I'm excited. I'm like, okay, all right, we're going to see what's going to happen next week. Things seem like they're going back to normal, maybe, but not really. So, okay. I feel like the door just opened and it was like, oh, you thought this was the final act. We beat Kiryu. You thought this was it. Oh, no. This was just the beginning. And it's like, oh, also the tells. Starting out with the tells was the creepiest thing. I don't know if any of you thought this, but I thought that their entire segment in this episode was creepy. It was disturbing and it was like unsettling. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this because y'all are going back to your home planet. Are we getting into aliens? I thought last week the whole thing with the tells being aliens was like just a metaphor and like a metaphor for queerness and just, which there are many aspects of this show that are metaphors for queerness, but I thought it was just like, oh, we're just a metaphor and symbolism, but no, we might basically be talking about basically aliens. I'm like, I'm kind of ready for it to be aliens. I'm here for it. It could be. I'm not going to be surprised. I'm just so excited to see what's going to happen. And who knows? The show may not explain it to us. And we just have to take it at face value and see what it is. But so we start out this episode. We might as well go in chronological order throughout this. But we start out with the story we've known from the start, right? Now, here's something that should be taken note of. That with Utena, we're going to put her over here. That with this, she lost her parents. There were 3 coffins. One seemingly designated for her, which she didn't get in. Well, she literally got in, but didn't die. And then there was the rose motif. And then she met the prince. Quote unquote. And got the ring. Okay. That's what we know about it. And Kiryu, we'll talk about him in a little bit. And he interacted with her as well. So we really don't know much about Utena's past, except that she is referred to as a princess. Now, should also be noted that Anthe has been referred to by Kiryu as a princess as well. So that should be noted. Just she's the princess as well. She's also the Rose Bride. And her fiancé, or whoever she's engaged to, is said to have the power to revolutionize the world. That seems to be quote unquote the final duel. The final duel is for the power to revolutionize. We'll go back and see if that's actually the final one, but that's basically that seems to be what we're building towards, is that revolutionary girl Utena, the power to revolutionize, that seems to be the final duel, but we'll go through that here in a little bit. But we've established all throughout this series that there has been a lot of unreliable narrators, a lot of mystery, a lot of questions that don't have answers and that are still mysteries. So I guess we could put these questions up here, and I'm going to just put them over here so y'all can see them. One, is Utena actually nobility? Were the coffin spaceships? For all we know. Were her parents blasting off in outer space? Who knows? Were her parents aliens? Is she an alien from another planet? Is it, you know, I'm going to give some Sailor Moon spoilers. So if you have in your lifetime not watched Sailor Moon, it's basic. You find out in the opening of the first episode. So it's not really a mystery. But in Sailor Moon, you find out very early on in the show that the idea is that there were other planets that had civilizations. They had like a court, a royalty. Each planet had representatives and its own princess. The Sailor Scouts are the reincarnations of the princesses. And Sailor Moon was the moon princess who gets reincarnated into the super magical girl. And she's Usagi on Earth. There, she's reincarnated. That's basically it. And Darien, who is Tuxedo Mask, is the reincarnated Prince of Earth, who is supposed to be betrothed to her. So I'm wondering if it is one of those things where she's either, you know, from another kingdom on another planet, or she's a reincarnation of a royal family from another planet, and that's the whole spaceships and the aliens aspect of it. This creator also did Sailor Moon, so I'm not going to put it past him, but we don't know any answers to that. And the show may never tell us. And that's fine. We can just theorize about it, but this whole opening is so interesting. It said before the princess appeared, a traveling prince mounted on a white horse. So we have the idea of the traveling prince. And that's a big question too. The next question is, does the prince on the white horse, how was he real? Or is it a metaphor? Because the whole thing with Kiryu was that he met her back when she was mourning the loss of her parents, and Kiryu didn't really say anything to her that was akin to what that prince does. He didn't wipe away her tears and kiss her eyes. He just basically like stroked her hair, as far as we know. Then they disappeared, and the next day she was fine. So somewhere in the timeline between Utena meeting Kiryu, somewhere in that timeline, the prince was involved. And then she had a new life goal, philosophy, what have you. So something happened in between her meeting Kiryu and the funeral that completely changed her point of view, and I'm assuming that has to do with the ring. So, but Kiryu had rings too, and gave one out to Nanami in the flashback in this episode. It wasn't his ring he gave to Nanami; she got her own. So how connected is Kiryu to all of this? How connected is he to all of this? How does he know about the prince? What's the deal? The prince is supposedly, we'll put him up here, the prince in white is supposedly the power of Dios. That just happens to also be conducted through Anthe. So he's the power of Dios, happens to be conducted through Anthe, but also this power of Dios is also able to go to Utena. Somehow. So that makes sense with the ED, actually. The ED shows the prince in white giving his power to not only Anthe, but also Utena as well. Okay, so that makes more sense with the ED. He's giving his power to both of them. The question is, where does this other guy come in? So then there's this other guy in the red jacket that seems like he's connected to Anthe somehow. So is he the guy in the red jacket? And he's somehow connected to the prince. The big question is, how? Is he a spirit that is also inside of Anthe? So is like, does his spirit possess Utena and his spirit possess Anthe, but they know each other? Are they the same person? Or are they two different people? Or to make this even more along the alien motif, could it be that the prince and the guy in the red jacket and Anthe, could they all be related or from the same place? Could they all be like, this is like a Rocky Horror scenario, and they come from the planet Transvestite, from transsexual Transylvania? Like, you know, he's just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania, and they've come here to Earth, and they've just met Utena and all of this, and they're just having their folly and seeking out the person that's gonna revolutionize this world using their power. It could be that. They could all be aliens. Basically, aliens. And they could have, and Utena's like caught up in the middle of it. And Kiryu, oh my god, Kiryu could be the guy that stumbled across all of this. And he's like the alien, you know, enthusiast. He wants to go on the spaceship and travel with them, but he's not worthy. He's not worthy. It's Utena that's worthy, and Kiryu can't stand it. Maybe that's it. Maybe, you know what? It's like in the movie Twister, back from the 90s. Not the sequel, I've not seen that. But it's like the back in the movie in the 90s, the original Twister, where you have Carrie Yules' character, and he's kind of an asshole, but he wants to be the one to find the Twister. He wants to be one to get all the glory and get all the power. And you know what happens? It doesn't work out for him because he wasn't chosen. Helen Hunt was chosen, bitch! So Utena's Helen Hunt and Kiryu's Carrie Yules. And that metaphor will be known by nobody unless those that watch the early 90s movie. This episode has got me jacked up, y'all. I'll tell you that right now. So, okay. So, for all we know, as well, the prince on a white horse is very much a metaphor. If you've ever seen the old movie from the 50s, White Christmas, that whole movie has the pretense of the protagonist, his character, who's played by Bing Crosby. He is often called like Rosemary Clooney, George Clooney's grandmother. She's beautiful in it, but she likens him to a knight on a white horse because he's like seems very gallant and stoic. So it could very much be a metaphor, symbolic, but they could all be aliens, and Utena's caught in the middle of all this. Anthe being an alien would explain a lot of things, such as swords coming out of her. And her ability to change her clothing, and also her supernatural abilities. If she weren't human, all of those things would be explained. I'm on the alien bandwagon theory on all of this. It's like Rocky Horror, you know? Anyway, so the prince is like, little one who endures such hardship all on your own. And he has a shadow throughout all of this, which makes me wonder if the shadow is likening to like his spirit, his presence, if it's connected to the man in the red jacket, or if it's, you know, connected to him actually being there or not. He's like, don't lose your strength and nobility even when you grow up. And he's like, take this ring and it will guide you to me and we'll meet again. Which, hell, if they're aliens, they could have been giving out rings left and right. They could have been just like, hey, maybe the prince is lonely. And he's like, you seem like someone who's worthy of my time. Come find me one day. Find me in the future. And treated her like Howl's Moving Castle. Why not? So, interesting. Okay. And then she vowed to become a prince herself. But is that okay? So, tracing a path. This is basically a recap of everything that's gone on. And we immediately cut to the tells. We cut to the post-duel. Also the tree where the duel takes place inside, the barrier, reminds me a lot of like the Garden of Eden tree where Nanami was like trying to get onto Kiryu and he was like, no, leave me alone. So then we have the two tells. They're in astronaut costumes and there are tentacles and everything. Or no, it's their oxygen lines from the spaceship being like, have you heard the news? Our meddlesome hero has won yet another duel. Our meddlesome hero. She's just getting in everybody's way, isn't she? Just meddling. And then what do they say there? Then they say, history is written by the winners. Losers flop like fish out of water. Which, yeah, she's writing the history. The sway of a lily in her step. Well, lilies are poisonous, so I don't know what that means exactly, but the sway of a lily in her step. I want to look that up, actually, while we're here. Sway of a lily in her step. Is there a line? Does that mean... So, interesting. Doesn't exactly... The sway of a lily, if it had a meaning... There's different poetry that talks about lilies in the garden swaying in the wind. But I don't know if that means anything. But then they say, but, oh, brave hero. And they're like, you're getting distracted. And then they leave. So they were about to tell us something important, and then they buzzed off. That this episode was a big, giant tease in a lot of ways, because you think it's going to give you answers, and it does give you some exposition, some answers, but not a lot. They just like, I will tell you next time. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So anyway, and then we find out that it's all just an illusion. This whole backdrop, everything, they've been just leading you on from the start. These tells. I love it. So anyway, we go to the mansion, and Kiryu has lost it. Kiryu, Toga, his reaction to losing the duel is everything I could have wanted. I'm scared. I'm very scared because he's having a nervous breakdown. If the egg's shell is not broken, the chick will die without being born. And and Nanami's like, shit, my brother's lost it. It's like that scene from Aladdin. Nanami is Iago and Jafar is just like laughing hysterically. And Nanami's like, ha, he's cracked. That's the vibe that I get. If the eggshell is not broken, the chick will die without being born. And it's and what gets me is it's one, the same recording equipment that we saw back in episode 6 that Nanami used. So it's a nice little callback to that. But two, he's listening to his own voice being recorded. So it's just like his own Hamlet Shakespearean monologue is just on a loop. And it's insane. If the eggshell is not broken, the chick will die without being born. So we go back to that whole idea of the egg, which the prince is sitting on an egg. He's sitting on one. So, waiting for it to crack. So, if the shell has to be broken. So, the shell of the world has to be broken for the chick to hatch, or for basically this power to be unleashed. So, part of me wonders if Kiryu had it in his mind that, again, he was the chosen one. He was like, I'm the one. I want to know who he got in contact with to get not only... Because with Kiryu, he not only knew about the end of the world, he not only knew about that place or person or whatever, but he also knew about the rings and the duels. He set this whole thing up. He was the ringleader. And he failed. So my thought was that someone got a hold of him. I wonder if maybe it was the guy in red. Maybe it was that spirit. Maybe, is he a spirit? Is he a person? He was with Anthe at the very end, so maybe he was a legit person. Maybe he's the end of the world. The point one in red could be the end of the world, and the prince is up in the castle. Because the whole point is they were trying to get up to the castle to get to the prince. That was the goal from the duels. That's what Saionji and Kiryu and them kept saying. They were like, well, one day you'll get to the castle to meet your prince. So the goal was to eventually get to the duel of revolution, which will get you to the prince. And if you break the egg, you release the prince from whatever. But he almost feels like a genie that he's trapped on the egg and he has to stay there until it's broken. But maybe that's the point. You get to the duel to revolutionize. You break the egg, and you get the power to do whatever you want. You get the power to basically self-actualize whatever your desires are. that seems to be the logic that I'm getting at. And Kiryu thought that he was going to do that. Whatever, we don't actually know what Kiryu's goals are and what his desires are. He's the one character we haven't seen that drawn out yet through flashbacks or whatnot. We've just seen the flashback of him and Utena. So that tells me that we will probably eventually find out. It'll just be later on when it's more important. But his whole thing was also conviction. And they didn't give us any time with Kiryu because we've just seen those episodes, but conviction and self. We'll talk about that when we get to the duels. But yeah, so with Kiryu, I feel like he thought he had this all in the bag. He's like, I'll just get through all the duels. I'll get her right where I'll get the power of Dios. I've learned how to use it from Utena. And then I will break the shell and get the power to revolutionize the world. Maybe he thinks that Utena isn't going to break the shell and get that power. Maybe that's his fear, because originally her whole thing was she didn't want to even have the duels. She didn't want to get the power. She just wanted to save Anthe. So to Kiryu, it's kind of like saying, oh, well, this is just a waste. I'm sure to Kiryu, Utena with Anthe is a huge waste, because he's like, the point is you use Anthe to get to the prince, to break the shell, to get the power to do whatever you want. And Utena was like, I don't care about all that. I just want to be Anthe's friend. And he's like, that's such a waste of all of these resources you've been given and all of this destiny and all this. And Utena's like, F that? And so he's like, no. So that all makes sense with his motivation. But now that he's lost and doesn't have Anthe, Kiryu looks like he's gone into this slump where he's thinking, well, now Utena's not going to try and break the egg. She's not going to try to get the power to revolutionize the world. And all of that's going to lie dormant. And all of that untapped resource is just going to sit there and I can't do anything about it. And he's just in this state of misery. But it's just insane. Like Kiryu just sitting there staring out the window and Nanami's like, she's like, I'm going to go talk to him. He's being Jack Nicholson right now from The Shining. No way, no, no. And I do feel bad for Nanami because she does adore her brother and she loves him. And she's like, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. So I'm sure she's going to go up to Utena later on in the next several episodes and be like, look at what you've done to my brother. And she's going to be like, well, this is kind of his fault. Anyway, also making note of this spiral staircase, something that it reminds me of that I've not been able to articulate the last several episodes. It reminds me of a drill. It's literally a drill, like a corkscrew. You drill into something. So is it drilling into the egg? And the opiate collapses, so I don't know what that means. But anyway, so then at the gate, we have this guy appear. We've never seen him before. He has a ponytail, and he has light hair that is the same color as the White Prince's. It's not dark like Anthe's, but he has this red jacket on with black pants, and he has a little rat tail, and his voice is the sexiest thing I've heard in quite some time. I don't know what his name is or who voices him, but that voice, I heard him go, and I was like, you have a deep voice, sir, and I am instantly into this. Let's go. You give me a good voice and I'm down. It's like, it's over. ASMR that shit right now. But he seems very cocky. He seems like he's in very much the mindset like Kiryu, which is curious to me. I was like, oh, was Kiryu not the douche of the series? Is this guy the douche? Because him and the prince seem totally opposite. He seems very arrogant and like very self-assured and very much like, I know exactly what I'm doing. And the prince is kind of like, well, I don't know. And I thought for a moment that maybe they're the same person, just split into two personalities. But no, I think he's a legit person. I'm just like, why are you here? Are you all the same? How did he get up into the castle? That's another question. How did he get up to the castle? The great questions here. So how did the red jacket, RJ here, get to the castle? That was supposed to be the trick of the shot. We don't know how that happens, but he just zipped right on up there. I'm like, Anthe, do you know how to get to the castle and you just not said anything? Because she showed up with him at the end. How did she know how to get up there? What? Now, the power of the Rose Bride, if this guy knows how to manipulate it, does he get it to where she can't remember things? Because she's never mentioned this guy before. He's never been around her, but she's with him at the end. What? So anyway, He's just sitting here on this little egg, looking sad with his sword. Like the power, it says, you've still not awoken. Still here, unable to break the egg shell. So, there is a possibility that maybe the prince has been trying to break the shell, and he's not able to. So that's why he's been trying through the end of the world to get people to help him do so. So maybe that's part of it. He's been trying to enlist people to help him break the shell. Because in the one guy, old Red Jacket, we see that the one hourglass, I love the concept. Not only the hourglass looks absolutely gorgeous, I would instantly want an hourglass like that. I don't think they would be fun to ship. So, and I don't even know if they make them, but the hourglass is gorgeous. I freaking love it. And the red and each of the sand colors relates to the person and how much time they have. I guess how much time they have until they no longer are a duelist or they no longer have the Rose Bride. So I also thought it was interesting that you have this mosaic, and the mosaic is like, it's the doors of the student council, right? When the elevator comes open, it's like the same mosaic. There are two pieces of glass in the mosaic that are always colored differently. And I don't know if that's just an Ikuhara, like, let me just throw this in here to be random, or if it has any meaning. I don't know. He's like, even the student council president faced defeat. Self. In the end, she conquered her 7th trial, which is Soy, the duel named Self. So each of these duels are a thing. And they're like seeing her covered in injuries, yet still protecting the Rose Bride. What does he say here? He says, brought back some nostalgic memories. So, is it possible, because Anthe remembered that. She was like, this seems familiar. It's like what happened last time. So, did the prince, by chance, was he trying to protect Anthe and ended up trapped with the egg? Maybe? Possibly? Like, it's cool, Prince, that you wanted to protect Anthe, but I kind of want Utena to end up with Anthe, so I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know. I'm curious. And this guy seems to have known when it all went down, so did he trap him there? Is it his fault that he's there? I have so many questions that the series is going to tell us, but anyway, so we have 7 duels that have happened so far. 7 sins, 7 virtues, you know. We have the 7th one was Self, which we talked about literally Scott Pilgrim last week. This one was Conviction. And then we have Love. Then we have Reason. Then we had Choice was number 2. Oh, I'm going to backtrack. I'm getting ahead of myself. Adoration was this one. Adoration, Love, Reason, and this one was Friendship. Friendship is magic, right? So, okay. Besides the 7 deadly sins, which we know about those, I want to look at the 7 virtues. Yep. 7 virtues. The 7, yep. So basically the 7 capital virtues, they're the opposite of the 7 deadly sins. So those are, and we'll put them over here, because obviously the 7 deadly sins are wrath, gluttony, pride, sloth, lust, envy, and then what is the final one? I always forget the final one. It's like wrath, gluttony, pride, sloth, lust, envy. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. What? Full Metal Alchemist, help me out. Envy, pride, sloth, lust, gluttony. Oh my God, there's one more. I've got to think of it for a hot second. Greed. There we go. So then the 7 virtues are temperance. Go through this. Temperance, chastity, Diligence. My dog does not care about such things. Patience. Nope. Humility. And then prudence and fortitude. Not nearly as fun. So, temperance is the ability to exercise moderation and self-restraint and remain focused on a goal. So, I would assume that temperance, you could, maintaining a goal, I'm assuming could go with conviction, right? Then you have chastity is refraining from unreasonable desires or abstaining from sexual conduct. Well, that goes alongside with love. Or maybe it goes with adoration, actually. Yeah, I'm going to put it with this. So then you have, obviously, lust is the sin with love. Chastity and lust. As far as conviction, we'll get to that. Then there is patience, which is the opposite of wrath. Patience is, giving into your anger, giving into, I guess we could tie that to wrath and patience are tied together. Then you have diligence is persevering effort that involves attention and persistence in what you do. It indicates worth ethic and believe that work is good in itself. I feel like that kind of goes along with the choice diligence does. And then we'll also put sloth as the opposite of it, because we'll talk about these in a hot second. And then you have humility, an attribute that can breed other virtues, similar to how pride is seen as the root of the 7 deadly sins. Yeah, so pride and humility are the two that are opposite one another. Okay, and then we have, I would say, I would tie that to adoration. So pride and humility. Okay. Then you have prudence, which some say is the foundation for justice, temperance, courage, faith, hope, and charity. I would tie prudence to friendship. Nobody. Prudence, I'd say, since it's about hope and faith and charity, would probably be the opposite of greed. We'll talk about that. And of course, this is just my own opinions. Y'all can disagree with me in the comments down below. And fortitude is known as courage. It's practicing what is good, even or difficult, even and just when it is even difficult or dangerous. Well, that we're going to put with reason. Fortitude. Okay. We're going to put fortitude there. And fortitude is going to go, I'm going to put against envy. Okay. So that means that with self, we're looking at the whole thing of wrath versus patience. Not a perfect combination, but we'll walk through this as we go. Okay. Interesting. So it says it brought back some nostalgic memories. I imagine even the Rose Bride was slightly moved, and now it seems you've begun to place your hopes on her. No, that's not quite right. Ever since her first duel called Friendship, the unexpected one with that Kendo Club captain. So yeah, she came out and unexpectedly duel. You already had expectations of her back then. So basically this prince could be the one that met her long ago and gave her the ring. And he's known about her. And so basically the prince, he is like, has his hope in Utena. That she can break whatever spell, do whatever's going on, solve whatever crisis that we have. And so we go through and have the situation. Also, I'm noticing that you have the rose at the top, which could be Utena. Then you have 3 petals that could be Anthe, the prince, and the red jacket. That could be what they represent, right? And so then we cut through each of her battles. Now, so with the friendship part, that was the whole idea at the beginning that she even started the duel. And the only reason she even started to at the beginning was because she found that she wanted to have a friendship with Anthe, and that friendship was her just wanting to, like, it was kind of the opposite of greed, whereas Saionji was greedy and wanted Anthe all to himself for power. Utena didn't care about power. She just wanted to have that friendship with Anthe and was very prudent. So I think that that's a good tie-in of Saionji representing greed there. All right. Then the next one that we got after that, after we cut through, and I'm going to cut through this duel here and get past that because we've already seen Saionji. I miss Saionji though, but we've already seen that. And so the hourglass ran out the first time. And Kiryu, of course, Kiryu is our resident alien watcher. He's been watching all of this go down. Maybe he's been waiting for the prince and the red jacket to show up. Who knows? And she's like, what a weird day. And that's when, again, we have her meeting Anthe, and it mirrors the very beginning. So, okay. So we had that, Saionji's time, and it says she became engaged as to the Rose Bride and began to walk the path of a duelist. And then she faced a second trial, which was a duel called Choice. And they're like, it's a rose seal. Anyone who has that ring is entitled to participate in the duels. And since you're the current champion, one by one, the bearers of the rose seal will challenge you to duels. Okay. And so the choice thing makes sense because that whole entire fight was about her being like, well, I'll just lose the duel and then we won't have to worry about it. But then she realized what the stakes were and about her friendship with Anthe and was like, well, now I can't just let you end up controlling her. That's not fair. And I don't want to let my friend down and do all that. So again, it very much is, if she had followed the route of sloth, then she would have just let Saionji win the duel and take Anthe back and not thought anything about it. But instead, she was diligent about maintaining that friendship. So, nope, that all adds up pretty well. Okay, cool. That all works. So, we'll go past this one. I like they went through the entire duel, over the entire song over again. Okay. But we had her, and Anthe's been watching this whole time. Part of me is like, is Anthe... she knows more than she's let on, or she's a lot smarter than she looks and she's just playing cool, or is she an alien and that's just part of her personality? Or maybe she has a blind and she can't see things. We don't know. But there's the Swords of Dios, the champion sword wielded by the best. But then, of course, Utena uses the power of the prince. His spirit comes down from the castle. The white rose happens and he like embodies her spirit and lets her win. Okay, cool. So then that's the end of that duel. So we cut back to the red shirt and he says, it was from that moment that your power, the power of Dios, finally began unsealing itself. So he has the power of Dios inside of him as well, as does Anthe, which makes me think they're all aliens. And it began to like show itself, and he has the sword too. So, maybe it's like, I wonder if the prince and the red shirt have like a, if you've ever seen Trigun before, have like a Vash and Knives relationship. I'm getting Vash and Knives vibes kind of as we go through this a little wee bit. But he's like, certainly that girl's fascinating. And the guy in the red jacket sounds a lot like Kiryu in this moment. So I don't know. But I feel bad the prince, we don't get any perspective from him. He says, your power, she may even herald the complete rebirth of the power of Dios. So theoretically, Anthe and this prince could have the power of Dios in them. If and why the red shirt does or does not is unclear to us. But maybe Utena could bring about a complete revamping of that power or unleashing new aspects of it. We don't know for sure. Anyway, he says the subsequent battles were all highly unique, even though they're like the same doors, just with different colors. So then we have Reason, and it's the one with Mickey. And we have that whole thing. So with Mickey, Reason, that kind of goes with fortitude and envy. Mickey was envious of a past that he could no longer contain or no longer grasp. So he was envious of that nostalgia. And fortitude is the idea of moving beyond that envy, beyond difficult times and beyond hurdles, and accepting things and moving forward. And that's what Mickey struggles with. So that one aligns really well. Cha-ching. Good. Cool. Got past that. Yeah, I just love that they had to give us shirtless or open shirt Kiryu because of course they did. So then that's the end of that. It says, I should note that what confined them was not the power to revolutionize the world, but in trying to possess a miracle, the miracle possessed them. So that's interesting. It's like, and we saw that Utena kind of had that one brief moment when she lost to Kiryu when it came down to conviction, because she started to get possessed by the miracle too, being like, well, I'll be the one to save Anthe, and Anthe can't do things without me. And then it started to possess her as well, whether she realized it or not. So the next one was love, which the two virtue sins are lust and chastity, which are the polar opposite, and love's right in the middle. Of course, jury has to represent love, right? That one's the most straightforward. And that's when Utena maybe realized that she might just not just want, Anthe as a friend. But before we get to that, indeed, the young always seek the end of the world. So the end of the world is this notion of the powers to have your desires actualized, right? Which ties in to Nanami, who adores her brother. And there's that idea of pride and humility. And it makes sense that we start at the root of it all. Nanami and her brother are kind of like the foundations of all of this mess alongside these three purple-haired individuals. But this idea that she's so proud of her brother, she can't possibly let anybody, tarnish his love for her, and how they're viewed together as siblings. And then the opposite of that is humility, where you let him go because he's your brother, and you grow up. And that's when we have Nanami saying, my brother got hurt because of you. And then we find out that she's a cat killer. So, fun times. So then, but here's the thing. After this, they go through all the different duel things. They just say, friendship, choice, wind, water, heart, go planet. And then reason, love, adoration, conviction, and then self, soy. And that's where we are with the prince. So as far as conviction goes, conviction is a firmly held belief or opinion, as in she takes pride in stating her political convictions. So with the idea of where do we have those, we have greed. I guess gluttony is the one we don't have. Gluttony is the only one we don't have on here. I don't know if, because conviction is your firmly held belief. Temperance is moderating one's impulses or emotions. Oh, and to make wise choices that behave. Well, moderation and gluttony are polar opposites. So those would go together, temperance and gluttony. But would they go with conviction? Well, it's one's firmly held belief. So if you look up the relationship between temperance and conviction, they are related in several ways. That the cause of temperance is based on an individual's conviction of personal value. Temperance is a virtue that involves controlling excess through characteristics such as self-regulation, modesty, and chastity. And in biblical terms, temperance is the ability to control your emotions, your attitude, your appetite, and resist sin. I feel like in that sense, that relates very well to Kiryu, because Kiryu, he got so caught up in the power of all of this, and so caught up in this, and his conviction and his belief that he would be the one to access it, and it would be able to give him the power to revolutionize the world for whatever means he was thinking of, that in the end, the problem is he just got too caught up with it and got gluttonous. And Jury kind of called him out, and then she's like, oh, you think this is the final act? You think you've got it all in the bag, huh? And then Utena had the temperance to end up beating him, right? Or at first she lost against him, but then she comes back and has her sense of self, which wrath and patience, wrath contributing to anger and overwhelming and anxiety, and impatience, and obviously patience being the opposite of that. It's not a perfect connection with all of them, but I think that they fit together pretty well for the most part. I'm sure y'all will debate me in the comments about these, but it took Utena winning the duel of a sense of self to achieve this moment where she's at right now. So then the red shirt says, even after clearing 7 duels, she's still a duelist. So we're not done with the duels. We've just beaten round 1. And he's like, she could well be the one we've longed for. Now, when that little animation of him raising that rose up, that was a mite bit creepy. A mite bit creepy, in fact. But that animation was very much puppety. It felt like the Tells, right? Again, maybe the Tells are the same. Maybe they're purple-haired and we haven't seen them yet. Who knows? But he says she could be the one that we've longed for, and he has the pink rose. So is she the key to unlocking the revolutionary power they're trying to unlock in that damn egg, and she's the one that they're waiting for? Who knows? But what does he say there? And then he looks over, he says, if she proceeds, she may just reach the duel called revolution. So we don't know how many duels are in between the duel of self and the duel of revolution. But I like that the inside of the prince's cape is red and this guy's jacket is red. So they are clearly connected. So then what happens if she reaches the duel called revolution? I like that they're separated. The day when you fully become free might also be approaching. So I like that, again, visually there's the distinction between the two of them. So the prince is trapped in this castle on this egg for some reason, somehow, and Utena could be the key to getting him out of there. Allegedly. At least the red jacket says so. So then he says, well, don't glare at me like that. So he's like, it's only natural for me to eagerly anticipate that day. So I wonder why the prince is trapped there, why he seems angry at the idea that the red shirt might be using Utena to free him, why he wants him freed. For a hot second during this reaction, I thought maybe that the two of them were lovers and that one spirit was going to go down into Anthe and one spirit was going to go into Utena. I thought for a hot second that maybe it was that these two men, the red jacket and the prince, were once lovers and Utena and Anthe are like their reincarnations. But then Anthe shows up at the end alongside him, seemingly. And I think it's Utena. I mean, I think it's Anthe. And so that kind of got that out of my mind. We both stand to gain much after all. There's so much cryptic language. What are you saying, show? So yeah, then he's like, but a new stage will soon be afoot. And then he tosses down that rose alongside all these other roses. So we have the greenhouse that makes the roses for the duels. He tosses it, like, it makes it sound like, what it sounds like is that they're a bunch of immortals waiting for someone to come along and break open the egg, and this prince has been sitting there waiting for eons. And all these others have tried, but they've failed. I don't know. But he says, yeah, that looks like Anthe there. I wonder how she'll fight the duels to come. Well, I don't know. But all these roses are rising up. So there's the pink rose, and they're surrounded by all these black roses. Okay. Okay, black roses. What? So anyway, we cut back to Anthe and Utena, and everything's just fine. Anthe's like, I'm home. So is she with him? While Utena was hanging out with Choo Choo? Yeah, because Utena's like, well, where were you? And she's like, I'm not telling. And I was like, what, bitch, where were you? Who are you with? Because Utena's like, well, what is it? Why are you being mysterious? She's like, Utena-sama, the clouds are moving so quickly. And Utena's like, oh, okay. Look, what should I do? She knows something, and Anthe didn't answer the question. She knows what's going on. Why is she playing dumb? Why has she been playing dumb this whole time? What's going on? Why does this mansion at the top here have a tower that looks like a giant penis? Why? Where are my answers? What's in this giant penis tower that looks kind of like a rocket ship? Are they aliens? And inside the penis-shaped rocket ship tower, there is a glass Beauty and the Beast style box. And the inside of that Beauty and the Beast style box is a butterfly that's on display for reasons. Like, it's just like a butterfly that came out of its cocoon and then was trapped. So is that a reference to the prince? Is he like a trapped butterfly? Not able to be free? and there's all these roses that are all connected, and then the spaceship's coming back with the tells. Bitch. And then there's a little black rose in the glass case. And a black ring. What? And then all of these men look up from the ground below. What? The Absolute Destiny Apocalypse. Oh, hell no. Now, is Utena gonna have to fight a bunch of men trying to get Anthe away from her? Is she gonna have to fight heterosexuality? Is that what we're gonna have to do? I'm sorry for yelling and being loud, y'all. I'm just very excited. I'm not gonna lie, this may be one of the best recap episodes I've watched. I would say the other best recap episode I've watched has been Neon Genesis Evangelion. And why should I be surprised? They both did the exact same thing. They gave me recap stuff, but with extra things that made me very excited. So yeah. Ugh, I'd slam that down, it would probably break something. So yeah, color me intrigued, everyone. I'm so excited to see where this goes because I have no clue what it's going to be doing. But I know that I'm excited. So anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, next week, we're going to dive in and see what the hell's up with this rose in a glass case, with these aliens, with these black roses. And I'll be back next week with more of Revolutionary Girl Utena. Peace.